Oh.
Welcome to your awakening. Please take calm as your reality is adjusted.
Please stay calm as your reality is lagging. Oh, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Stop the screen share. Welcome back once again. Another edition of Sol Excalibre on this moon day evening. Greetings, salutations, well met, all that good stuff. And I will say, ladies and gentlemen, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I say, hey, folks, well met, folks, salutation, folks. I've just been deliberately silly because listening to somebody the other night saying, oh, they don't like it when people say folks. We should talk to the individual, not the group. I disagree. But anyway, yes, welcome back once again. I apologise in advance if I cough and splutter at you and if I run out of breath. So I might be going a bit slower. I got caught out in Storm Dennis on Saturday, Dennis the Menace, and it's caused my COPD to flare up quite badly. So I ain't got a lot of breath this week, which I'm sure for some people may be exactly what they want, because they seem to be intent on just derailing what we do here. I don't know what the conclusion is that they expect. If they think I'm going to stop doing what I'm doing just because they have a bitch about shit. No. But that is partly what I want to talk about tonight. It might sound a bit bitchy. And as I've said multiple times in the past, I'm not talking about any individuals. If I'm talking about an individual, I'll say their name or their account name or whatever. You know, I'll make it obvious that I'm talking to them or about them. But most of the time I'm talking in generalities about demographics of people or the groupings of people or society at large. So please don't take it personally. Some of what I want to rant about, like I said, might just sound a little bit like bitching, but I don't think it is. And this as well will probably, for some people, sound a little bit like fear porn. But just like when you're caught in a storm, if you don't know or you're not aware of the environment you're in, it's going to make your life a lot harder. You're going to find it much more difficult to get through that storm, to weather that storm, as they say, because you're unaware of the environment you're in and what potentially could be going on around you. So some of this stuff I want to bring up may sound like fear porn, but I'm not talking about these things because I want to just create fear porn or make people afraid and shut people down by making them scared of what the fuck's going on or possibly going on, etc. This awareness should help you navigate your own pathway. So being aware of this kind of stuff does not mean that you are succumbing to the fear of it. Courage does not mean the absence of fear. It means the resolution to work through the fear so that you carry on despite the fear. It also enables you to realize whether fear is genuine, whether there's any good reason to be afraid of something, or whether it's just false evidence appearing real. Yeah, there's so many people are readily, are readily put off by the propagandized terminology. Can I mute you for a sec because you're feeding back a little bit? The propagandized terminology of fear porn. And it's a very easy label to just throw at something to shut down people's thinking and any further investigation of that topic. Because basically it's like, be afraid, go the other direction, folks. Don't go this way because it'll be terrifying for you. And often when I'm talking about things, because I do talk about some fairly esoteric subjects and ideas sometimes, when I'm talking about stuff that maybe rocks the foundations of your paradigm, that can initiate fear. I've talked about this many times in the past, the principle of DABDA, the grieving process, denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance, because I found over the years that it correlates quite well to people's discovery of truth and the process of burning away of false beliefs. So they feel they're losing the paradigm that they used to have that enabled them to have a grip, a concept of their life as it was. And when you start revealing things to them, or when they start figuring out for themselves and realizing many of the deceptions out there, it's as if their paradigm is dying. So they have like a grieving response, which is that denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. So most people, like I think was Schopenhauer quote, I never thought to dig that one out. Truth is ridiculed, then it's violently opposed, then it's accepted as self-evident. So in the same way, you talk about certain subjects and at first people just deny them because they don't want their paradigm to die. Then they'll try and come up with some way of rationalizing or bargaining to redirect the truth. In other words, to somehow try and twist the new truth that they've learned and make it keep their old paradigm still alive. They try to cobble it together in some kind of bargain. And when that obviously doesn't work, because it just can't, then you get the depression, which can lead into hopefully acceptance. And the sequence doesn't always follow in that order. And we don't always go through a complete process. Sometimes we bounce backwards and forwards. Sometimes you get up to the kind of depression stage. And because the depression is difficult, you jump back to the denial stage. And you start just like, I don't want to know. Just push it out of your mind, kind of denial stuff. So, let me just find pages I wanted to screen share. The subtitle this week, The Infected Crown to Lock You Down. I know I've mentioned this in recent episodes about how the coronavirus, the meaning of the word corona is related to the crown, the ring around the sun, which is the crown of the sun. And I've speculated about possible connections or reasons for why they've used that particular viral base, because it's enabling certain other narrative elements that suit their goals at the moment. They want to change paradigms from the way the old world used to be into a new technocratic dystopian security state. So to do that, they need to destroy that old paradigm. I've talked over most of last year, was ranting nearly every week about the Phoenix effect and how it seemed to me that 2019 was very much leading up to that Phoenix process of they're getting ready to sort of flick the switch. And when you correlate that to things such as Agenda 21 and Agenda 2030, the timing of it is all starting to match up. So Obviously, the infected crown part of what I'm saying is connected to coronavirus, the crown element of the word, and it's an infectious viral thing. So it's the infected crown. But at the same time, I'm sort of making an allusion to the crown of yourself, the crown chakra, or just the mind, the brain, if you don't like the kind of Eastern traditions of chakras and stuff like that. So infecting your thinking, infecting your ability to make use of your own mind to make decisions or to corral your thinking, very much like Newspeak in the 1984 novel, by restricting what you can and cannot think of or discuss. They are controlling what goes around in your head, basically. If you control language, you control the very concepts that people are able to conceive of in their minds. If you have no concept of certain words, then you would have difficulty thinking through anything that included that concept. Like toilet paper. If you had no idea the word toilet paper, you've got to sort of start all over again from scratch, trying to conceive of the very thing itself. And it's a very simple manipulation, but something that they've been working on for a long time, hundreds of years, really, at least a couple of 100 years since they sort of consolidated the English language as it is into modern English. They've been slowly, systematically chipping away at words and manipulating the definitions or creating misconceptions of definitions and creating concepts that are deliberately meant to cause certain reactions in your thinking. I've talked before about the kind of incantation, is the way I described it, the incantation of the term conspiracy theorist. When somebody says, oh, you're just a conspiracy theorist, that is an incantation that is meant to affect your thinking. Like a spell, it's meant to cause a certain reaction in most people's thinking. If you are of the Matrix, you will have an aversion reaction to that phrase. If you're a bit more open-minded or got a bit more self-confidence to think for yourself, etc., you will probably go, hang on a minute, why are you saying that to me? So it's not quite the same reaction, but for the majority of people, it just shuts down the thought process. As soon as they're accused of being a conspiracy theorist, the first thing they want to do is defend and justify themselves. That is the reaction that is expected. So that it shuts down the discussion, the thought process that the people may have been discussing. One calls the other conspiracy theorist. The other one is immediately diverted from what they were actually thinking about and spends the next however long just trying to defend themselves or justify what they were doing. Simple process. But with the coronavirus going on at the moment, let me do the screen share. We sort of talked about this a little bit in previous episodes. This is on the BBC. I'll scroll it up a bit so you can see what website it is. This is on the BBC. This came out on the 8th of February, so a week or so ago, or 9 days ago, innit? And this has been featured in other news websites, newspapers, whatever. And it connects back to the Event 201 that was sort of what do they call it? The war games, the tabletop war games of a viral outbreak that they did with the Gates Foundation and others, where they ran that experimental war game based on a corona type viral outbreak pandemic. And part of what they said is we will have to control the movement of information. And in particular, we will have to be sure of being able to control the spread of conspiracy theories. Misinformation is the way they would portray it. You know, in their assertion, any conspiracy theory is misinformation. You should only rely on information from official sources. So clearly they're stating straight away that they want to have a control over the exchange of information. Now, I mentioned earlier about how some of the stuff I might mention might just sound like bitching. But has anybody else noticed, maybe it's just me, but over the last couple of months, there has been a reappearance of many account names on YouTube in particular, obviously, because that's where I'm looking at most of this stuff. Many account names that I haven't seen around for quite a while. Some of them, it might be several months since they've been around, and some of them, it's been a few years since they've been around. And as I said earlier, the kind of caveat is I'm not directing this at any individual. I'm not trying to suggest that anyone in particular is, you know, part of the control system, an agent, whatever. I don't know. But I find it interestingly coincidental. So I should have put bunny ears on coincidental. I find it very interesting that there seemed to be this resurgence of names that I haven't seen for quite a long while. And it all seemed to be happening within the last couple of months. And then February comes and we have this viral outbreak. BBC puts out an article talking about we need to be able to control what the trolls and conspiracy theorists are putting out on the internet. So by implanting that kind of thought or control mechanism into people's thinking, infecting their crown, inserting an infection into their crown so that it affects their thinking. Let me just, I can just change the tab, can't I? Because it's on the other browser. And then just yesterday, the Daily Mail sort of catching up on things that obviously some of us have been talking about in this kind of environment for the past couple of weeks. The possibility, the potentiality that the current, what they call it, COVID-19, the current outbreak actually comes from one of the labs in Wuhan. So is it a manufactured virus? And then you got obviously the question of, was it released deliberately or did it just get out by accident? But potentially they're now admitting, even though, you know, this is a Daily Mail, it's not exactly a super brilliant investigative newspaper, journalists, etc., but they do often cover stories that a lot of the other news services won't cover. And this is them at least acknowledging that there's a fair amount of good evidence, and now there's what do they call it? A report or a paper. There's some Chinese academics that did a study, and they said 96 to 89% identical to the BAT-CoV ZC45 coronavirus, which is what they'd been using in the lab. So by their study, their report that they've made, it means there's a high probability that the current outbreak is this particular man-manipulated virus. So is the Daily Mail now a conspiracy theorist? Or is it just that more of the truth is coming out and there's enough information such that they can't exactly deny it or hide it? Or is this more just deliberate release of controlled information so they can sort of admit that they, it came from their own lab, but obviously there'll be some kind of plausible deniability, like, it was just an accident. We didn't mean it to happen. Trust us, we still know how to look after these dangerous viruses, but it was just an accident, coincidental accident that happened just after event 201 and in the beginning of the year 2020, when we only got a few more years towards most of the goals of Agenda 21, but we're rapidly getting into them. And that's really all I wanted to screen share from that. It's just to make a point that this was in the actual newspapers. But now we're at a point where they've made official statements here in the UK saying that they have the legislation in place such that they can isolate anyone that they feel is at risk to infecting others, the super spreaders, the patient zero infectious people can be picked up and isolated involuntarily. So that's very close to declaring medical martial law, is one way to put it. I know we've got quite a ways to go in terms of other martial law elements, but when you look at the situation in China, they are basically in martial law. They have cities in lockdown. I remember talking about this a couple of weeks ago. They have entire cities in lockdown, controlled using martial law principles. There are armed troops on entrances and exits from the city and on major transportation connections. Now we've been given official notification by the UK government that as far as they're concerned, they've got the legislation to basically do the same thing. So the little video clips that we keep being presented with from China of people being dragged out of their homes and put into vans and taken to mass wards that are in a sports stadium or something similar, that's applicable here in the UK. Whether they'll go to the extent of isolating entire cities or towns, as I said, we've got a fair way to go yet before we get to that kind of stage. And the last several days, nearly a week, the virus itself has been said to be slowing down. Again, we're reliant on the numbers, the information that they're putting out, that they're giving to us. But according to their own numbers, it does seem to be slowing down. So is this sort of mostly done with? Are they going to start winding it up? Here in the UK, the last nearly a week, the news has been filled with the storms. Ciara, one a few days ago, and then the current one, Storm Dennis. And the UK media has just been saturated, like it's been flooded by Storm Dennis. That's all the news seem to be talking about primarily. So are they starting to wind it down? But in the process of winding it down, they have most of the public acquiesced to the concept, to the expectation that if there is some kind of pandemic, or if this carries on, then they will initiate medical martial law. They'll use the justification of the medical pandemic problem, but they'll initiate martial law so they can control the movement of people, the infectious. And this is guaranteed going to include the dissemination of information and the control of people talking about so-called conspiracy theories, because we all know how evil conspiracy theorists are. Yeah. They want to use their brains, but that means they're evil. you can't use your brain. You're an evil person if you use your brain. And a bit of silliness, but the point being, it seemed to me that occurrence, as I was describing it, of people turning up who haven't been around for a while, it's almost like they were getting their people in place, in position, ready to deal with the crazy conspiracy theorists in this online environment. Were they sending out their agents, their operatives, to be in position, ready, and to handle the coming exchange of information that they knew would happen? So like they described it in Event 201, they would need to control the movement of information. As I said earlier, could it just be my perception? Is it just a coincidence that because of all the stuff going on recently, people who haven't been around for a while have decided to come and sort of look in again at what's going on? Maybe, but it seems to be quite coincidentally convenient. I don't want people to see this as fear porn, and I don't want people to see it as being the kind of, you got to distrust everyone because they could be an agent. That's not reality. But you also should not be naive into believing that there are no agents or operatives. There are. And it's not like it was in the 60s or 70s or whatever. They don't need an entire team of people to monitor you. I thought at this point about including just some references to COINTEL Pro, which was the project they used primarily to disrupt the Black Panthers, but also to work against the civil rights movement in general in America. That was the counterintelligence project, COINTEL Pro. There's quite a good body of evidence that you can look at in that particular example. So I think it's a good reference for people to see how that kind of stuff worked 30 years ago. But now, with the modern technology of the internet, it doesn't take an entire team of agents. It takes one. Sometimes it doesn't even take any human operative interaction. It's all done via the data monitoring that happens on the internet itself, via your ISP, via the platforms like YouTube and Facebook that automatically harvest all that info. So I don't think it's helpful to be in one extreme or the other. It's not reality to have a complete distrust of everybody you interact with and think they're some kind of agent. But at the same time, don't belittle yourself into thinking that whatever it is you're doing online is meaningless. It's not. They know the value of the movement of information and the influence that can go along with it. The more people that connect with useful or good information, the more influence that has on what they do in their own lives. Therefore, that affects the society that they live in. They wouldn't go to so much effort to monitor and control what is happening in this environment if that were not true. And this concept that you are insignificant in this environment because you're just little old you. I'm no competition for the big bad governments. I'm just little old me. I'm just looking at videos on YouTube or whatever. What you look at affects your thinking and your desires and expectations, and that translates to the other people around you in your life and the neighborhood that you're part of. It has an influence. and they know that. So I got to put my reading glasses on, put my Harry Potters on. Let me just, because I thought it was highly appropriate just to read out. It's just the first 2 paragraphs of this book, which by Edward Bernays, Propaganda. The first 2 paragraphs basically say it all. The conscious and intelligent manipulation of the organized habits and opinions of the masses is an important element in democratic society. Those who manipulate this unseen mechanism of society constitute an invisible government, which is the true ruling power of our country. That should say globe, really, in this modern age. We are governed, our minds moulded, our taste formed, our ideas suggested, largely by men we have never heard of. You don't have to be Bin Laden for them to want to take an interest in you, because it no longer takes a team of people to monitor your data. Your data, your activity can be harvested and collated and put in a database where it can be analysed as part of an entire demographic. So it's like, well, what do 25 to 35-year-olds in the UK think of the current governmental reaction to coronavirus outbreak? Do a bit of data and an analysis. It's like, oh yeah, so many people think this, and then they can burrow down in that data to the individual level if they choose to. So if they want to find out exactly what Joe Blogg thinks of the coronavirus outbreak, they can burrow down in the data to that individual level. So everybody's little contributions all add up to the big picture of influence. So this idea that you're just little insignificant you, that they would never take any notice of, is very much 30 years out of date. Ever since they've had this mass data surveillance system and the ability to store and analyze that data, it's no longer true that you have to be somebody special on a list that then gets you investigated in some fashion. To them having the ability to control the movement of information, to supposedly deal with the trolls and conspiracy theorists during this time of pandemic, it's going to happen. It is happening now. And if the coronavirus thing keeps going on and potentially getting worse, then the information situation will get worse as well. Now, one of the things I wanted to screen share, because it seemed appropriate to a lot of the shit that's going around at the moment, because I know there's quite a few people that want to get into just bitching about different personalities online. Right, do you like this personality, or are you upset because they've now turned out to be a dick and you used to like them, but now you think they're a dick? So are you upset about the fact that they're a dick? It's their personalities online. If all you're looking at is the personality, then you're missing the information. Why so much concern with the personality? It has a contextual value, but shouldn't you really be looking at the information, the ideas, before you then apply any concern about the personality? This is a lot of what the system would rather we do. They would rather we all remain small-minded, arguing and bitching about whether we think the celebrity of Caroline Flack that killed herself was, being oppressed by trolls on Twitter, and that's why she decided to commit suicide. Talking about people. Yeah, shall we bitch and moan about Meghan Markle? Yeah, they want us to be stuck in that kind of thinking that the personality is what matters. Yeah. I've talked before about when some people get upset when I use certain quotes, like one of the Einstein quotes that I think might be in the info box. Imagination is more important than knowledge. Without imagination, you wouldn't be able to come up with new ideas. So imagination is more important than knowledge. You can have all the book knowledge in the world, but if you don't have any imagination, you won't be able to come up with any new ideas. But because it's a quote from Einstein, there's a lot of people out there that straight away just get upset because it's from Einstein and he was a plagiarist and he was this and he was that. And it's like, look at the information. Does the quote make logical, rational sense to you? Do you agree that imagination is more important than knowledge? So it doesn't matter if fucking Hitler said it. But they want us to be obsessed with the personalities. Might as well go back to watching TV if we're going to do that shit. I'm not here to do that. I might have a bit of a whinge and a moan about some people sometimes, but I'm more concerned with the ideas and breaking down events when they happen. The personalities come and go. Some of them are dicks, some of them are great people, and you get the range of people on the internet, yeah? So having an expectation that everybody has to be perfect or they have to fit a certain blueprint before you will accept what they're talking about, do only beautiful people have the truth? When ugly people talk, is it automatically bullshit? It's idiotic, it's childish. And that's sort of enough of my little rant about that, because it just seems to be, the main concern at the moment in this environment. It could just be the kind of distraction tactics of them throwing shit into this environment to distract people from the other stuff that's going on. Yeah, but that's an easy excuse. I think it's a further perpetuation of them just wanting to keep people in a small-minded mindset where they think they're insignificant, that what they think and what they talk about has no influence on the world, and that all they should do is concentrate on what's right in front of their face and not get involved with any of that highfalutin, complex governance kind of question, because they're just too small and insignificant to make any difference. And that is easily disproven by the fact that the guy who's credited with creating modern propaganda and influencing entire nations of people knew the value of connecting with the individual and how every individual added up to create an influence that changed societies. But they don't want you to think about that kind of shit. Right. I'm going to shut up for a bit.
Cheers, Cookie. Very well done, considering you're not in, you're not feeling too great. So, well done, man.
I didn't want to not do a show tonight. I could have done with leaving it, but with a lot of the stuff that's happened over the past week, I thought if I don't show up, there's some people out there that will just take that as some kind of cue that, oh, he's running away, he's hiding, he doesn't want to talk about shit. It's just fuck you bunch of twats. There's a lot of really sad shit going around at the moment. It's just like, I hoped that, you know, a lot of people would have grown up out of all this bullshit by now, but it seems that they're not, sir.
Well, it just seems to be a lot of professional moaners out there at the moment, I'd say. Just, you know, they just moan, like, you know, they accused us of moaning all the time. We just moan constantly. It's like, no, we do come up with a lot of, I think, solutions and better ways to look at things. That's what it's about, get people to think. But yeah, there seems to be a rise, and like you mentioned, a rise in these soccer accounts that seem to have popped up again. Same names popping up, and I've had a few subscribe and stuff, and I know I've got a heap of them on mine. I know you have, I know we all have. It's just how it works on here. But yeah, they seem to sort of come about and go in little, comes around in little sort of circles of time. You know, they're just rising again as we see, like you say, this potential lockdown of society over the corona man-made virus. And yeah, go on, Gary.
I was going to say, everybody's going to get a treat. Next week will be Survival Island Celebrity Soul Excalibre. So,
well, this whole thing, yeah, and this, it's just a mess, isn't it? This how people get wrapped up in all of this celebrity crap anyway, and put people. And I was thinking the other day, you know, how it's like when people fall out with people, if you put them on pedestals and you expect too much of them, and suddenly they let you down because they're only human at the end of the day, then really and truly, you know, what's your beef? You know, it's like people just want to have a bitch and a moan about something, and it seems it's not really doing any good in the long run about coming up with how people trying to push our way through all that stuff. And like you say, the small-minded type of thing, that was a brilliant quote, because that's where people are generally stuck, in the people. You know, small minds, you know, just discussing people, and just involved in drama constantly. And it seems to just is what feeds us. It seems to be a natural, like, I don't know, we just get sucked into it. A lot of people don't realize how sucked in we're getting. But then, you know, events, and then you move up into discuss ideas, you know, which is where we should be. You know, ideas. Let's see, we've seen the mess around us. We see how, you know, the system is and society is structured and set up. You know, this is where we need, this is what I think we've been doing for quite a while, you know, where we get together and, you know, okay, we pull the news apart and all that as well on the reality chat, but it's ultimately about getting people to think and, you know, just know that there's, you know, there's other people out there as well, like you know, who are, you know, looking for answers, looking for different ideas, and can see the system literally, you know, falling apart a little bit, you know, especially with Brexit and everything, and see how the lies and the deceit and everything is just so huge, and the dark agenda that they seem to have, and want to push that upon the people. Yeah, it's about time we, you know, like I say, this small-minded people distraction thing, and, you know, celebrities who want to be famous and then kill themselves and get involved in all of that sort of dark entertainment world shit. It's all part of the Hollywood stuff, you know. It's just, you know, it's all the entertainment world. All that stuff's full of these people who self-harm, and, you know, this is one particular woman who did self-harm, it said in the news. And, you know, it's, you know, what sort of mind, what sort of, like I say, what sort of message is that giving to people? And it's the youth that they attack, isn't it? It's the youth that they go for. And the young girls, the young guys, and this Love Island thing, which they've had now, that's 3 deaths now they've had. That's the 3rd one related to that show, Love Island. I've never watched it. I'm not interested in any of that crap. I don't watch TV or mainstream TV. And what, you know, what is that doing to people? You know, what is that sort of message is that giving? Is that a good message? That sex and, you know, it's not real love. It's just, oh, fancies me, or whatever, you match up, you can have stuff. And anyway, go on. Sorry, I'm just.
Well, you're saying that, it just made me wonder if they created that classic combination of sex and death.
Well, it seems so. It's very dark, isn't it?
Well, life and death is like the traditional way of trying to portray it, but in modern society, modern culture, they've turned it into what is usually sex and violence.
Yeah.
You know, so in most movies, you'll get a combination of the two combined, you know, shit like that.
Yeah, but we've seen that dumbing down. Sorry, Dave. I've just seen that dumbing down going on. It's a complete dumbing down happening around us every day with the entertainment that they're now dishing up for us. Sorry, Dave. Go on.
I was just going to offer him like the Sex Pistols, so like Guns N' Roses, like the sex and the violence, or any Lady Gaga song.
As soon as she starts singing.
Yeah, well, that reminds me, because what popped in my head there was this kind of separation thing they keep trying to do. You know, it's like in Glastonbury, for instance, this music festival, not the place, but the music festival they have this year. They're having an all-female Sunday thing where all the artists, apparently, they're trying to all be female, which, you know, again, it's just kind of like when you're trying to separate the sexes now, and it's sort of subtle. You know, it's like, oh, we have to give them. It's like, it's not.
Oh man,
people are missing the point here. They're going over the top again. It's the extremes of things. It's like we don't separate each other. We're supposed to be together, male and female. You know, it's not a separation thing.
Oh man, guess what? There's the feminists out now in Spain. Yes, they do have a big problem with men hitting their women. Yeah, I mean, you know, the average Spanish woman, you can understand it. Boom, boom. No, but no, a machismo problem. They do have that going back a long way. Yeah. But anyway, there was a bunch of feminists out in the middle of Barcelona the other day, and they're protesting on Valentine's Day. And they're coming across with a message that romance is the fucking cause of machismo, violence, yeah? Men beating up their girlfriends. I thought, that's like saying the fucking, the cause of food poisoning is people eat. You know? I mean, it's like, it's so far the one from the other, yeah?
Yeah, the ridiculousness. Yeah, the daftness of that statement. Yeah,
the thing that stood out to me as well was Sunday, Sun, S-O-N, Sun's Day, and they're having a feminist day on Sun's Day, so they're appropriating that gender element again.
Yeah, but they bring it into everything, aren't they? Sorry.
Haven't men always traditionally been the serenader? You know, trying to serenade a beautiful woman.
Well,
what is wrong with that? You know what I mean? Trying to find these like the diversity quota and everything. Surely it should be based on talent as opposed to your genitals, like the same as the Oscars. And it should be based on talent rather than melatonin or your sex. You know.
Well, I'm willing to give half an ear to a lot of the feminists on the stuff. They talk about the patriarchal society and, mansplaining. Yeah, and the first time I ever saw that, I think shortly afterwards, I saw this video where there was a guy from CNN, standing akimbo, right in some woman's face. And I saw it. I thought, I know exactly what they're talking about. Yeah, it's not just men that do it as well, it's women. But that mansplaining, I thought, they've got a point. And it's a shame because some of the points they make are valid and could, be a contribution. But
can I just mention as well, just that comment New Beans put, no one's beyond reprieve, are they? Everyone can do this. Everybody is open to this, no matter where you are in your mind or what programming you've gone under. You can expand it and get on the right track, if you like, get on the right path, get on the right thinking. That's easy to do. It's an easy thing, and people don't realize. They think, "Oh, I can't do. Oh, I just don't. I can't be bothered."
And I think we are all, to one degree or another, all three of those. Yeah, because sometimes we're thinking about big stuff, and sometimes we're thinking about average stuff, and sometimes we're thinking about small stuff.
Yeah.
So everybody sort of goes through stages.
Don't get stuck.
But to me, getting stuck in any one of them will be problematic. You want to be able to have access to all of them. Use all of your mind, not just, I'm only ever going to talk about people. I'm only ever going to talk about others. It's a combination of all of it.
That sort of limitations you put on yourself, where we'd say years ago, you only use so much of your brain power or something, and they haven't unlocked the other 90%. It's like that's a killer. So
it's a misdirection as well, or a misconception.
Yeah.
Because if you were using the entirety of your brain all at once, you would not have the same kind of perception that you have now. Yeah, you'd probably have some kind of chaotic perception of everything just being all jumbled up all at once. if the entirety of your brain was firing all at once.
Yeah, it's like juggling balls. You don't juggle all 12 balls at the same time. You know, your comparison, you do one after another.
You're supposed to grow into awareness as a human from a child and through the stages of your growth. That's what it's about. But somebody's come in, a third party, and hijacked the fucking lot of it and twisted it up and created this mess. They say if you get kids, then, you know, that's the next generation. Teach them the right way, and it's been saying it forever. It's one of them songs, isn't it, from the '60s? Teach the children, yeah. But that's true. It's the simple truth. You know, we just are not growing the way we should be because we've let this third party or whatever, the system, dictate and control every aspect of our existence here. You know, where now it's getting silly now with the way the digital thing's set up and how that's now easily, you know, how they collect all their data, as you mentioned, Cookie. That's now a simple process now. They don't need, like you say, hordes of people and following people around. You know, it's simple now.
Most of it is happening automatically now.
Yeah.
They just go to the database when they have a feeling or a need to investigate something, but it's all literally just been hoovered up and stored.
I think a lot of this woke agenda, I think it's intentionally ludicrous in order to bolster the alt-right or the new right. You know, the way it works, like sort of hand in glove, like in a Hegelian sense. You know, it's, I think a lot of the illiberal liberal stuff is intentionally ridiculous.
Yeah.
You know, so that it feeds the other side.
Yeah, it's like feeding the what. Yeah, we've seen that all the time. The stuff we've talked about, and you see it happening all over the place still. People going out and that one side against another. I mean, we haven't mentioned the French for ages, have we? They're still going out doing their thing, aren't they?
Yeah, the yellow vests are still protesting.
Yeah.
Blackout, maybe a blackout on that. Two things popped into my head when you mentioned the grieving process earlier. First one, I don't know if anybody's seen it. It was a video that came out from South Korea. It was about a parent having a VR reunion with a dead child. I just thought that was going to fuck your head completely up, you know, and mess with the grieving process altogether. I seen that, and around about the same time, I seen a news piece from the BBC. It says, "Can taking a pill help you to get over an ex?" You know what I mean? So it's the synthetic grieving seems to be the order of the day. One more thing. This Caroline Fleck. I think this is linked in here as well. Like, and with the World Health Organization chief, you know, who gets to determine what is real in this age of allegation that we live in? You know, who becomes the arbiter of truth to say that you are a conspiracy theorist? You know what I mean? And just to wrap it up, the Caroline Fleck, the Caroline's law that they're proposing to introduce, you know, they bring this out. Our corpse is still warm, you know, and they've got a law behind them now. You know, it's we've got to safeguard these people in the public eye. That's, for me, that's just it's the drip. It's more of like the curtailing of your expression. You know, like the tagline behind it is, if you haven't got anything good to say, don't say it at all. You know, so for me, all that shit ties in with equating an alternative view to psychosis. You know, I think this is what we're witnessing at the moment.
It links in as well to the vaccination element, because I didn't think to mention it earlier, and I know it's not full legislation yet, and I think it's going to be different in each country, but in the USA at the moment they're pushing to have mandatory vaccination for the coronavirus when they've got a vaccine. Yeah, and they reckon they're going to have one within however many months. I think they were talking about 18 months. And there's already a company that said they've successfully created one. They've just got to go through the process of testing it and getting it into mass production. But in the same manner, they could introduce something similar here, where there'll be mandatory vaccination.
Yeah.
And if you think differently, then it's the same thing, is it? Yeah, you're not following the herd. You're not doing as you're told.
I think that's a big step up, though, isn't it? In a sense of, do you think they would really go for that right now? In a sense of, you know, because it is a big step. I mean, how many people would go, "Oh, get lost," and they know that they know they're in a lot of trouble.
I think that they would have a no flights thing. Yeah, so you could
borders would be shut and all that. Yeah, I get that. And even counties, they have county lines and stuff possibly set up.
And children in schools as well. Yeah, that's where they'd start.
Oh, that's obviously already happened in China. But yeah, if the cases keep increasing in other countries, then they'll probably start doing the same.
Yeah, I did see a story that the numbers were dropping in China, but that's not going to do much to the rest of the world as they've unlocked it, or sort of, if you like, released it in that way.
Well, I wonder if the element of whether the main sort of threat has been played out now, and they'll start winding it down because they've sort of achieved a few different things that they wanted in China. They've reinforced the kind of security state control. They've made people acquiesce to having armed police sealing up entire apartment blocks and shit like that. Yeah. Fucking crazy shit, man. Welding doors shut. Things like that. And at the same time, that includes the internet element of it, and that has that knock-on effect to what was happening in Hong Kong up until the outbreak. It's totally quelled the Hong Kong protests completely. So that was very good for the Chinese. That was what they wanted, wasn't it? And the fact that, and I know I had said it for a while, but I've been saying it for years, China is the model for the new world order. What is being implemented in China is what they want across the world. So if they're doing what they're doing now in China, like we described and talked about in recent weeks, then that's the kind of shit you'll see over here. It might take a year or 2 or 3 or 4, whatever, but what they're doing over there is what will be done here.
An attack on your body, attack on that crown chakra you were talking about, and all the other chakras for that matter. I was writing that down. The base chakra, your red, your grounding, your orange, your sex bit, your solar plexus, yellow, heart chakra, your throat, which is blue, and that third eye, which is in the forehead there. They're all your main energy centers. They've hijacked a lot of them, or tried to, various ways and forms. Your own energy body. It's been manipulated in certain ways, which stimulates certain areas and stuff, or gets them to perform positively or negatively, or overperform in certain ways, or you get people who are out of balance in whatever way, whatever way that is, acts or physical or in their head. What they say, just totally out of balance, and they like that. They do. Balanced people are not what they require. They want everybody, out of kilter, ungrounded, up in the air, and continue to fear you out with the propaganda. And Edward Bernays, I mean, wow, that's we should mention him more and more. I remember back in the day we used to go on about him a lot. The father of propaganda and the social engineering. We've got now Tavistock Institute, all these Institute of International Affairs, the Royal Institute, should I say, of International Affairs, all linked in, all these.
And the Tavistock Clinic, which in the UK is the main place where young children are being transitioned. Interesting connection there, isn't it? Tavistock. I was just looking, this is like 1928. So almost 100 years ago, that's what, 92 years ago, this guy encapsulated in a few short words what is still the truth now today.
How to manipulate masses.
And they know full well the power of influence, and it's why they're so concerned about controlling this environment. They want us to be talking about cats and farts and celebrity gossip, spill the tea and all that shit, because that is no threat to them. But you want to start talking about truth, about what's happening in the world, about governmental conspiracies, because conspiracies do happen. Not everything is a conspiracy. I have to repeat that caveat, even though I've said it multiple times over the years.
5G.
Not everything is a conspiracy, but some of it is. They don't want us talking about that stuff.
A lot of it.
5G is a conspiracy for sure. Yeah, I've got that documentary up on the screen. Yeah, and Derek Brose has been he's been working on this for a long time now. Yeah, I didn't know that Trump had passed an executive bill saying that no state could resist the 5G rollout, for more than 90 days. Yeah, so if you've got an objection, you can put it in, but the only thing you can object to is you don't like the look of it. So if you don't like the look of the aerials, they'll come up and put a bit of, decoration around it, or, they'll disguise it as a palm tree or something. Yeah, you can't stop it. Trump signed an order saying that. And there's loads of other information in this video, all about the health things. There's been a lot of studies on the health effects, cancer in the ear and in the head. I mean, it's proven now,
Because it wasn't sort of connected to what I was talking about tonight. But if I can find it again, I'll bring it up on Wednesday. I think it's Sweden has said they're having a complete moratorium on 5G rollout because of health concerns. Not we'll think about it. They said no 5G because there's health concerns.
Yeah, and the worst thing, I mentioned the diabetes in rats a little while ago. They reckon that they did statistical studies, right, on the early big transmitters and the people living in the radius. There's a 1 in 3 chance, 1 in 3 greater chance that a woman will have a miscarriage. And something like middle-aged Hispanic women have got like a 50% chance of becoming diabetic if they live within one of these. That's huge, man. And they reckon 1 in 3 Americans will suffer from diabetes at some time anyway. And that is the real killer of 5G, these electromagnetic waves, and messing up the sugar metabolism. Wow.
The VGCC, the voltage gate calcium channel. Because that's how the cells communicate with each other.
It's a good information in this, and people are beginning to try and fight back a little bit. I mean, the guy in the United Nations, he says, well, actually, I'd like to hear that about that health concerns because I just put one in my house.
A lot of people are just ignorant. They don't realise just what. Like I say, there's a whole load of evidence there that says it's dangerous, it's bad, and Sweden have just backed that up if that's what's happened. So there you go. So that's one country that said, hang on a sec, we're not going to do this just yet, we're going to look into it. Whereas we just rolled it out like we did with fracking, and then they stopped that because of the earthquakes, but they didn't say that really, but you know what I mean, they've stopped it. It's stopped for now. We don't know if they'll start that off again, but with 5G, same sort of thing could occur. I did mention a while ago about this like I say, we've talked about the rise in mental health conditions and all this stuff over the last few years, and people just having anxiety and whatever, depression. When all this thing is all turned on, properly running, it'll just be like, oh well, you just have a mental health problem, or you just if you're having some kind of reaction to it, or worse. And also it's the same old thing again. They wait until it's too late when people start getting ill and they start actually making the connection to that. Then they go, oh, okay, sorry, we'll switch things off after 20,000 people have died or whatever. That seems to be how they do things. They don't actually listen to us beforehand. They just act. And
isn't it great? We've got this new 5G technology network grid that we finally found out how many insecure people are out there, that are on the spectrum somewhere.
Yeah.
You can help them now. We've got this network.
Get the entire nation on it.
While you were saying, I was thinking it's similar to the vaccine question, the vaccine situation as well. Because like I mentioned last Wednesday, even though there is no proof, there's no laboratory experimental proof of whether or not vaccines cause autism or potentially connected to causing autism. There is statistical evidence which is what Dr. Wakefield pointed out. Yeah, he noticed on his numbers of children, he was like, that looks a bit out of the ordinary. I'll do an analysis. And he did a statistical analysis that showed there was higher rates of autism in certain demographics of children that had the MMR jab, And not so long ago, one country banned the MMR jab as well. I think it was Japan. That was in the news yesterday, the day before. They've stopped the MMR jab completely. So for all those people that, whatever, bitching and moaning, but the point is the pharmaceutical industry and the governments along with them, because remember, it is a corporatocracy, so they're one and the same thing, basically, have outright refused to do a statistical analysis of rates of autism in vaccinated compared to non-vaccinated children. Why would they outright refuse to do that unless there's something to hide? If it's true that vaccines are great and that, there might be a bit of a collateral damage, but it's not as bad as you think, folks. It's not causing the rise in all. If that's true, why do they outright refuse to do that kind of statistical analysis? They refuse because they know the results, if it's an honest report, if it's done by independents rather than fucking funded groups, they know that it will show a higher rate of autism in vaccinated children.
Yeah.
It's just, and then now I've heard the classic mainstream debunking element of the only reason there's an increased rate of autism is because there's more diagnosis now. It doesn't add up statistically. Yes, the increased diagnosis means you will have an increased number of people diagnosed, but that still does not equate to a change in the space of 2-3 decades of going from 1 in 10,000 to 1 in less than 50. It just doesn't. No, sorry. The DSM has only been updated twice, I think, in that kind of time, from DSM-4 to DSM-5. And now in DSM-5, there's more subcategories, so therefore there's more diagnosis being made, etc. But it still doesn't add up to equate to the actual numerical rise in cases of autism.
Yeah, I mean, there's too much at stake for them, isn't there, to admit that they're doing, there's problems. There's too much to, riding on it, and people like Dr. Wakefield, who were kicked off the medical register for saying the truth, and then allowed back on. Yeah, and allowed back on a few years later, which people didn't sort of know about.
Reinstated,
and then he's done some videos. I think you can find stuff on YouTube. Dr. Andrew Wakefield, is it? Yeah, Andrew Wakefield. And just go and put his name in and have a look at the information that he's put up about various things about vaccinations and stuff, and it's worth listening to. And you'll see all the reasons why all the hysteria is about, because like I say, there's a lot to lose, isn't there? It's a multi-trillion, gazillion.
It's not just the money,
I know.
It's the culpability.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm surprised that so far there hasn't been more attempted cases being brought against people in the bureaucracy over the legalization of cannabis, because I'm not sure if it was California, so one of the states in America recently released a whole load of offenders that have been locked up for cannabis related charges. Are they going to compensate those people that were released because they were locked up for something that's now a legal substance? Is somebody going to try and prosecute one of the bureaucracy because they got locked up for something? I know it gets a bit silly, complicated of the legal system, but my point is sort of the culpability of the entire vaccine industry. It's not so much just the money, that's part of it, but really it's about the fact that if they come forward with this, if they're honest supposedly about it, you imagine the sheer number of people that potentially face life in prison or something like that because of their complicity in pushing shit that they knew were harmful.
Well,
Yeah.
the opioid problem in the States, you know, that story where they were over prescribing opioids, you know, and knowing how addictive and how bad they are. And
I'm
they
saying that
suddenly, well, they went bankrupt, didn't they, or something, or just shut down.
Bayer,
Yeah,
Bayer were never really charged or prosecuted to any great degree when they sold infected blood and stuff
yeah,
like that. Yeah.
yeah. There's been lots of things, isn't there, where they've really done a number on the populace, haven't they?
Yeah. Thalidomide.
Mm.
There was never any real sort of pursuit of culpability over that. They just sort of threw their hands up and went, "Oh, we made a mistake. Sorry,
Yeah.
there's a whole generation of people with little hands, but it was just a mistake."
Yeah, because again, there's this, yeah, and the World Health Organization classes it in their top 3 things that threaten the world health is anti-vaccine people. It's like, there's some sort of, you know, like I say, anyone, you know, apparently who's spouting it all on the social media is all shut down or whatever, and promoting anything for people to look at alternative information. That's where we've seen the fake news stuff work perfectly against people who are trying to push things that are good, you know, to sort of, you know, brand that all up together and use it as a means against people who are trying to push, you know, truthful stories, things that make sense, things that are being researched and looked at correctly, and talking to, you know, people who are scientists and professors who are not on the, you know, like you say, on the payroll.
Yeah.
That thalidomide scandal just lays bare their ideology and their mindset, you know.
Yeah.
Up there with chemotherapy, really.
Well, today, strangely enough, I thought this was a bit of a, I don't know, it was just the fact that they admitted this shit, which made me wonder what the fuck was going on. But there's a Conservative MP that was part of Johnson's new, I don't think he was on the cabinet, but he was one of the advisors to the cabinet, who got sacked today because of his statements, recent statements that he's made, where basically he's saying eugenics is good. It'd be really good for us to start using eugenics again. And Richard Dawkins not long ago talked about, oh yeah, eugenics could be good if we start doing eugenics again. So remember that movie they did where the superhero alien thought it was a great idea to kill half the people in the universe? Yeah, funny why they did that, isn't it? And now they're talking about eugenics. Yeah, we will breed the people that we want.
It's funny that I mentioned that last week, didn't I? On Wednesday's chat, I shared a eugenics thing, because that's what it's all. I think that's where you look at the bigger picture. That's where you know, it's all about them controlling everything, manipulate, you know, getting you to, well, basically die out quickly, it seems, or kill you off, or reduce you, or certainly in the African countries with the Bill Gates Foundation and their program of vaccinations out there.
Maybe that's why they're getting rid of Harry and Meghan.
Well, yeah.
I do think there is a connection to the Crown with the coronavirus bullshit at the beginning of this year. This is them getting ready for the royal family to take up a very different position. You know, Philip's going to be dead soon. The Queen probably not be long behind. She might very well be dead this year. You know, so they need the whole sort of gambit around the way the royal family is going to change. And the, you know, them going off to Canada sort of like sets the scene, doesn't it? We're not going to carry on being royals, but you still have to call us by our titles.
I can see what you mean about them taking like a sort of more like sidelined role, or like, you know, something like more disguising it. But there's a lot of willing peasants out there still that prop up that fucking sex show.
Yeah. Some people like having that kind of figurehead. You know, I've tried to describe it in the past about the figureheads you used to have on the front of ships. You know, if you use the metaphor of the ship being the nation, the ship of the nation, and the figurehead is kind of like what inspires people to have confidence in the vessel and bring good luck and prosperity and fertility and blah, 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 blah. Yeah, the royal families are the figurehead, and they give a lot of the population that kind of sense of unification. So they feel a connection to the vessel that is the nation state. They invest their energy into that vessel, like Gary's meme. Yeah, they externalize and separate from themselves.
Well, I see the palace is up for a £369 million renovation.
Oh.
Is that
369?
did we not hear the same exact same story like a couple of winters ago? Like,
Yeah,
it was roughly about the same amount of money as well.
Chunky Mark could be arrested for breaking the decibel levels, won't he? He'll be screaming in his cab. 389 million for Buckingham Palace. That's what he was saying last time. It's about 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
I don't know why people complain, because they just do it anyway. Like, just take the money. Why doesn't she use the money she saved on Prince Andrew to pay for it? She doesn't pay him a subsidy anymore, so use that. Why take it off us?
Just make him go and work in Pizza Hut.
like the new king of Spain, yeah, he's brother-in-law, yeah. So like imagine Princess Anne, her husband. He got caught defrauding one company, and then he was charging people for a dinner ticket to sit next to the king. Anyway, when it's all got caught, he was a thief, so he was put in prison, yeah? As soon as he'd been found guilty and put in prison, the actual king, the new one, he came out and said, right, I'm changing the way everyone, like, he's not going to get any more money, but I'm getting an extra 300,000 a year. He just gave himself a huge pay rise, as if to say, look, you know, we royals, we ought to be above stealing, yeah, so give us more. And like, it was too late for his brother-in-law.
It's legal stealing, legal theft.
I used to imagine the king having to go to one of these prisons, you know, and there's some old lag, you know, custodial crime, visiting his mate there. Oh, hey, Phil, how's it going, mate? Brother-in-law in Schnick, is he? You know, just imagine the fucking king going to visit his brother-in-law.
I was just thinking, like, just being a couple of years ago, with them doing the exact same thing. Is that what they've got the average public's attention span down to? You know, like, oh, just give it another 12 months, and you know what I mean, we'll be able to pull the same shit again.
Yeah.
Works for Max Eigen.
Yeah.
Oh. Well, I know we shouldn't be concentrating on the personality. It's more the events, and then further that, it's the ideology. But I mean, if Max Eigen says he was hit with unknown technology by the control system in a shed in the rainforest that made him say he was the one and that the earth was flat, then I suppose I'm not going to stop listening to any nuggets of sense he might come out with in the future. You know, let's put it that way.
Yeah. I did look at the last thing he uploaded and I thought it was tripe. It's one of the first videos in a long time that I actually thumbed down. But that it just because there's a lot of appropriation that they're doing with that whole Tartarian mud flood bullshit.
I don't want to ambush you there, or not mean like talk about the personality. You know what I mean? I'm just saying, like, we don't need to eat the whole apple tree when it comes to knowledge. You know, like, and it's all about never mind the messenger. Did you get the message? So fuck the personalities, fuck the cult of personalities. Just take your data points from most varied amount of sources you can get and try and put it together for yourself.
Yeah, and if they're pushing it like they do, it generally means there's something. Do your own thinking, is my, like you say, Days, is to think for yourself and do your own, thought processes on it, and people will try and convince you of all sorts, as we've said, all sorts. So it's up to you. Don't get. It seems like a crazy rabbit hole. I've seen this over the past 10 years of extremes. They've taken it to the extremes. I've said so many times, pushing it, and it's part of their, like fusing out process as well, because they know people are beginning to get more into that, higher thinking, or that sort of working things out. And they'll try and, throw all that celebrity entertainment crap at you constantly, but they know there's most people do, a lot of people do see through it. So they'll do other things. If you get into something good, they'll try and push you to the extremes. push you into that corner, push you into that corner, push you into that pen, and then you're sealed off, and then you're labeled a complete nut job. It's part, you know, we've seen that. We talked about it for a long time. So, and it's happening. It keeps happening. So we just stay firm, stay strong, stay grounded, stay centered in yourself. Do your own thinking. You know, be balanced. That's all. You know, and you won't go too far wrong in your own self. You won't go crazy. You won't want to self-harm yourself. You won't want to do all these awful things people do to themselves because they're so, you know, messed up by the whole thing. Mask wearing, pretending. You know, they want to be anything they want in the world. Well, actually, be yourself first. That helps. You know,
you are the only you.
You know, yeah.
No one else has ever been or will ever be you.
Exactly.
You are the only ever incarnation of you.
Yeah.
It bugs me with the victim stuff of the kind of like, how do you describe it? It's like graded demographics. You know, if you got a certain label, you're worth a little bit more than an average person, and some labels are worth more than other labels. So if you're a so-and-so, you're worth more than just a what's it. You know, fuck off the lot here. Everybody is special in and of the very fact of their existence. It doesn't mean everybody's a superstar or whatever, but everybody is special.
Yeah.
Intersectionality, Victim Olympics.
Yeah. I know a lot of people have developed a kind of aversion to saying people are special. You know, you got the kind of crazy connotation, but you've also got that kind of, oh, you're just being a wet, limp-wristed liberal. You want everybody to be all, you know, airy-fairy, or everybody's special. It's like, no, just the very fact of your existence.
Yeah.
You are the only ever incarnation of you. Nobody will ever have exactly the same life experience as you. That makes you ultimately special. Doesn't make you the center of the universe, but it makes you fucking special.
And believe it or not, in diametrically opposed to Ayn Rand, who thinks you need to be selfish. But once you do find yourself, you can then stop being selfish, because you realize before you find yourself, you've got a huge number of things that you want in life. And one of the biggest wants is to want to find yourself. And once you find that, a lot of those other wants go away. Yeah, life becomes a lot simpler.
Yeah.
You can stop affirming yourself through feedback from others and all different kinds of things.
Looking for validation.
Yeah, as Peter said, when good ideas come along, even then, either they're misunderstood or they're twisted in some way. This guy Lauren Carpenter up on the screen, he did this experiment where he got a theatre full of people. And they held up these little bats that you can see in the guy's left hand, yeah? And it's got a green and a red side. And half the audience, if they hold their green bat up, the ping pong thing goes up and down.
Oh, yeah. The controlling the game from the audience, yeah.
Yeah, the audience were controlling the game. Now, he says, oh, how this happened, we don't know. But it says there, it says, it was a complex adaptive system with emergent behaviour. Now, in the video, this is Graceful Machines. I'll put a link to it in the chat and underneath the show as well. What he says is, we don't really know why this happened. But I looked at it and I thought, well, okay, what if you was one of those quick people? Because what happens is, if you want the pong thing to go up, you don't want it to go all the way up. And so about 10% of the audience are going to have to realise that, and they're going to think a bit quicker than everybody else. And that means that 90% will think, yeah, well, it needed to go up. So I, put the bat up, and some clever bastard somewhere else, manipulated it that last little bit. So I'll continue to be dumb because it worked. Yeah. I played the part of the dumb person, and about 10% of people are doing the rest. So he says, this guy saying there's no hierarchies. But what I'm saying is a hierarchy naturally emerged from this group of people.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the thing about this video, the reason it's so good is they go into the work of Ayn Rand and all the people that, she's influenced, or not all, but a lot of the people that she's influenced. And a lot of them are the ones in Silicon Valley. And then there's Greenspan, who was head of the Federal Reserve. Yeah, and he was putting Ayn Rand's ideas into the economy when he was head of the Federal Reserve, and that's part of the reason why it all collapsed. So yeah, a very interesting thing, and it kind of helps explain as well the myth that these people have in their mind, and the ecology thing comes into it as well. Like, oh, we can map the ecology. Oh, every ant, every bee, every fly, we can run it into our computer and do all the calculations. And like what this documentary is telling you is that you can't do that. It's just too complex. Yeah. So Ayn Rand got it wrong. A lot of these silicon people got it wrong. What he doesn't mention about Greenspan is like they talk about, oh, the big financial disaster came and Indonesia's economy collapsed. And I'm thinking, no, it wasn't just because of Rand and Greenspan being a bit stupid. No, this was done behind the scenes. So all this guy is doing is pulling away the first layer, yeah, of the rabbit hole, so to speak. Yeah, because I'm damn sure they knew that collapse was coming and people orchestrated it. But, you know, the people in the middle, they think it was all because of a wrong theory of economic theory. Yeah, and it all went wrong. And so it tells you the myths that these people rely upon. Because when you've got that many people, like this audience, all telling each other a lie, and they're telling each other the same lie, and that's what they're using to push Extinction Rebellion, etc., and all the rest of it. I think it's important to understand what myths are in these people's minds. What ultimately gives them a justification, yeah?
Yeah.
So,
like that one as well. Yeah, Gustav Le Bon, wasn't it? I mean, that's 100 years old as well. And that's talking about, in a way, similar things like emergent systems coming out of the kind of group mind, hive mind effect.
Yeah, but that whole Ayn Rand thing was just lifted straight off the top of Anarchy, yeah, and twisted to fit a capitalist idea set, yeah?
Yeah.
I mean, you know, she's taken from each according to ability and to each according to need, and she's thrown the second part away. Yeah, that's all she's done. Yeah, you don't have to care about others.
Sounds a bit like Crowley when he chopped up the ancient law and said, do as thou wilt shall be the whole of the law, whereas it used to be do as thou wilt but do no harm.
Yeah, and thou used to be, thou was understood.
That's the whole selfish fucking ideology, isn't it? You know, see anybody else as a threat. See anybody else as something that's going to stop them from gaining wealth instead of acting cooperatively, coexisting with people.
But Crowley ties into Nietzsche as well, because Nietzsche said, like, God is dead. And he's right, the idea of God had literally died. So when Crowley says, do as thou wilt, almost nobody hearing that thought thou means God. They thought it just means me, do as I want. Yeah, but thou is like an open word. It can be you or me or God. Thou, you hear some of these people from Lancashire talking about thou and thee. Yeah, and like there are no laws, there are no rules of who is thou or thee. It's whoever you want it to be, kind of thing. Yeah, is that not right?
I think I thought on that it was more pertaining to the will, with the capitalization of the W will being what the higher, your higher consciousness. You know, what the higher things in nature.
Divine will, divine order, following the divine order.
Yeah, and wilt is like want. Do as thou want. Wilt, will. If you do as thou will, it is like it's. Yeah, you're right. It does. They're twisting it, changing one letter, so will becomes wilt, which is almost like want.
It's like love is the law. Cooperation, is the natural higher order. Exactly, kind of what we're talking about. You know what I mean? Like,
that's how the universe works.
The opposite to that.
So the entire universe is operating through that kind of cooperation. Nature fills every vacuum and things find a space to do their thing. The immense simplification of such a complex system. But
love is the law. Love under will. Do as thy will, and then will, the capitalization of the word will, being the higher order of the universe.
Yeah. Well, that'd be a good point for me to say hello to everyone in the chat room. Thanks for joining us. giving us your attention for, it's been an hour and a half so far, hasn't it? I'm not going to go down and do a roll call, but hello and thank you to everyone that's joined in. If there's any questions people have, I did say that I'd do a kind of question thing at some point, probably this week. I'm not going to go on for much longer, so if you've got any particular questions, stick them in the chat now. Make sure you stick a question mark on them or something so we know that it's obvious that it's a question. Sometimes it's not always obvious. It looks like it could just be a statement. But I did see somebody asked earlier, rumpled foreskin. That's a good name. I'm sure you put in a question earlier asking, do I have emphysema? And I thought it's probably worth me answering that considering the way I've been and whatever. No, I got COPD. I got caught out in the rain in Storm Dennis, basically. And it just caused my COPD to flare up over the weekend. So I've been running out of breath rapidly. Thank you for the effort. Thank you for joining us. What do I think of PK? Cardin is asking, what do I think of PK? I went off PK around the time of the Boston bombing. I'll give you my full explanation. I was actually chatting with the guys about this before we come on the broadcast. I'll give you my full explanation because I think it's fairer to do so and what influenced my thinking. At the time, I thought, there was a few people doing that kind of event analysis, breaking down the evidence of the different events that had been happening because, at the time, Boston was just the latest one. There'd been a string of various things. He did his breakdown of Boston, and I think he did it, the general breakdown, he did just as well as everybody else did, because there was quite a lot of people covering it. And part of it was Boston seemed so fucking obvious. And as well, the fact that there was a lot of video evidence and other evidence meant, again, it was so fucking obvious that it wasn't real, it wasn't genuine, that it was fairly easy to see through the bullshit. And the way PK presented his information, I thought it's not doing justice to the information because he's got this thing where he feels a need to just be abusive. It's the easiest way to describe it, to just cut to the chase. And I described the video that basically turned me off him from that point on, was he took a clip of, there's this one bit where there's a woman with what is allegedly a fake baby around her neck. And she's quite a big, chunky woman, she's a bit fat. And she's wandering around just looking a bit confused, and this, what was supposed to be a child hanging off her and whatever. And it adds to the evidence of fakery and acting and all that kind of shit. But he did what must have been nearly a 15-minute video of just about 20 seconds of that clip, literally looped. So it just kept repeating. And nearly everything he said was, look at the fat bitch, look at the fat bitch, look at the fat bitch, look at the fat bitch. And I'm like, what's that got to do with analysing the situation, right? All it's coming across is you're being aggressively abusive to somebody that's overweight. I know you can have the kind of semantic moral argument of, oh, well, she's an actor taking part in this fakery, which means she's culpable, she's a bad person. Okay, yeah, but why are you fixating on the way she looks? Why are you making that all about what the video is all about? Yeah. And that to me made me suspicious that he was there to parody the truth movement, skeptic movement, whatever you want to call it. He was there to parody and to create drama in the way he did his thing. Because of his aggressive personality, didn't matter where he went, it just caused drama.
Could be, but then I'd say, I mean, by the time that video came out, he'd already done a lot of good videos. It was just like he personally was getting more and more exasperated and couldn't give a fuck about this anymore because, like, you know, what effect was it having? Like 100,000 views, maybe. Whereas, literally, you know, showing the guy sitting in the wheelchair with yellow powder paint on his shoulder. But when somebody spills a bit of water on it, it turns into fake blood. I mean, it was right there. The guy's hair was covered in yellow powder paint. You know, this is the colour of fake blood, yeah? You add water, the yellow becomes red. I mean, you've done loads of videos like that, you know, pretty much keeping his cool, swearing a little bit. And, you know, nothing was happening from it. So I think it was...
We're back to that problem of this, the numbers online can be manipulated. So you think you're only reaching 10 people, but the reality is that you're probably reaching more than that. And then you have to allow for the ripple effect as well. So you are genuinely only reaching 10 people, but each one of those 10 people talk to another 5 people. So you actually, your information is reaching a lot more than just 10, yeah? The concept that he was only reaching a few thousand or 100,000, that's an immense reach. In this environment, that's quite a big reach. And the coverage of Boston really did blow that out of the water. Yeah, that kind of coverage was part of why they came in so heavy after mainly Sandy Hook was really the linchpin. That was the force multiplier. They did that deliberately so that they could crack down on this environment. Yeah, and that's still happening now today.
Yeah.
If you start talking about the details of Sandy Hook, you'll get shut down.
Look about Alex Jones, the role he played in it. You know what I mean? He now says that he was suffering a mental break, a form of psychosis, when he suggested that Sandy Hook.
Only because he could lose all his money. He'd say anything, won't he? Because he's getting sued, isn't he? Sued, or he would be fined, wouldn't he? Or I don't know how that would all work out for him over there.
He gets sued, yeah.
Yeah. But defamation, millions of dollars and payout, that could wipe out his entire empire that he's built. You know.
You see the role he's played in that, and how that leads to self-policing within the digital panopticon.
Yeah.
Well, we know he's like controlled opposition, all those other lot as well. We haven't mentioned them, but then we know who's who and who isn't. If you know what I mean. And I think you make your own. I've done that myself, and it's proved right. I mean, I think we've all done that. We all know who's, I think, got a good radar for that now over the years. Who you listen to, who you're watching, or whatever. You tend to pick up, you know, if someone's not, you know, correct, or there's something about it they're saying, or whatever they're trying to push an angle. You see it straight away. I mean, it sticks out a mile for me anyway. I think most people watching this would be the same as well. They're either watching it for entertainment values and things like that, or a laugh, or they just whatever, you know. It's like I say, there's a whole plethora of stuff out there, but a lot of it is controlled. That's the problem. And channels like ours and others that aren't, we're just independent, we just do what we do. They tend to be the ones that, if you get over so many subs and so many views, they tend to pop up on the radar. You know, you tend to get seen. So, you know, maybe it's good we just have little channels. I think that's better, you know, and we just get on and do what we do. And we're not offensive, I don't think. I mean, there are the snowflakes and stuff, but, you know, what's that quote by that fella saying the ability for the, you know, for you to be able to think, you risk being offensive. You know, you're just thinking thoughts and things of this nature. No one intends to offend anybody, I'm sure, but the way they've set up society nowadays, it's just got ridiculous, hasn't it? How people are just, you know, using that legislative stuff that they bring in, which we say that's when you know it's getting serious, because then they can prosecute you. Then the straw man and the fines come, and the problems come for you. How you're behaving just by what your words are, you'll missay something, or you may unintentionally offend somebody. It gets to a point of ridiculousness, you know. And
that will eventually influence people's thinking. Because over time, given a bit of time, probably about a generation, people will learn to avoid certain phrases
and
because they know, like political correctness, they know, oh, I'll get sued or I'll get fined if I say that phrase. So they deliberately, consciously choose to stop using it. But after a while, they'll forget. Certainly the next generation will not understand why their parents didn't use that particular phrase. They might not even know that the phrase existed unless their parents had explained it to them. But eventually that phrase disappears and people can no longer remember why it even existed or what it meant to it. So it's pushing stuff out of people's minds. That is like 1984. Control language and you control people's thinking.
Absolutely. Newspeak. First they came for the pronouns. I did not stand up, you know. It's like compel speech everywhere these days. Even Katie Hopkins got banned from Twitter this week, you know. What? As much as I fucking hate that race baiting hag, you know what I mean? I'd stand up for her rights to say whatever the fuck she liked.
I'm a little bit surprised that video I've got there, that Cookie's about screen share, didn't get taken down. Did anybody see this one this week? The latest from Comedy Unleashed. This woman. Oh, she is really outrageous, man. Yeah, she really is outrageous. Yeah, 5,000 thumbs up, 76,000 visualizations. I mean, that's good. That's where a lot of the truth has gone. Yeah, I mean, they do lean towards the right, but even there, you know, I mean, I've seen trannies up on stage, transvestite guys. Yeah, and you know, as long as they can tell a joke, they're welcome. Yeah, I mean. These people do know that, you know, when they're pushed to it, the audience, when they're pushed to it, they do accept that we do want free speech. It's just accidental that most of the comedians appear to be right wing, but then, you know, the left wing are the easiest to attack, aren't they, and make jokes about it?
Because they're too dogmatic. That's why.
Yeah, they're ridiculous as well. A lot of the stuff they say.
A lot of it comes out of the intelligentsia, which is primarily the academic demographic. And one thing you learn if you've been through the academics process, higher education, whatever, is it's very rigid. Mostly, nearly all of it. There's some subjects that give you a bit of leeway, but mostly you're learning to repeat what they tell you out of the books. So it's very dogmatic thinking.
Yeah, and don't look in the back because the answer's in there.
Yeah. I can't see any other questions. That's a YouTube link. Okay, I'll leave it at that then. You know, check out what you want to check out. Listen, watch what you want to listen, watch. Read what you want to read. Something I've said multiple times over the years. Yeah, I make my own choices, which means sometimes I will choose to look at, listen to, and read stuff that you might not agree with. Yeah, but you make your choice. Yeah, this idea that we all have to do exactly the same doesn't apply universally for everything. There's some things that it would be good if we were all on the same page over.
If you've got a good intention, then you can't go far wrong, can you? In what you want to do, if your intentions are right and correct. Yeah.
Get your heart in there first before you apply your mind, your brain, because your heart will go straight to the truth. The heart knows the truth. The mind complicates things. That doesn't mean you shouldn't think about stuff. That's what your mind is for, to think about and analyze and contemplate and speculate and imagine and create. But the heart will go straight to the truth.
That reminds me of a quote I made earlier on. Yeah, because there's more than one. Ken Wheeler was talking about different ways of thinking. So my one was that man's tendency towards reductionism is the reason he so readily acquiesces to the idea of centralized power system, because he thinks reductionistly. What he's not doing is thinking deduction, and then you've got thoughts that are play learning, like we saw with the ping pong ball game, and then you've got repetition. So people consciously repeat an idea as if they repeat in actions, because when you're working a machine that you know how to work, you have to think the same thoughts you did the previous time. So it's not reductionism. It's reductionism. You're taking everything and trying to squeeze it down into a funnel. Yeah. Deduction is like laying out steps across a stream. But people are so stuck on reductionism that brings everything down to one answer that a centralized authority makes a lot of sense, automatic sense to them. Yeah. And part of that is because they're not taught the other ways to think. Yeah. Which
and it's the path of least resistance, following in the same kind of entropic decay of energy. Yeah, people go through that kind of slowly reducing it until it goes to that mean line. From the original oscillation, it gradually reduced and reduced and reduced until it's back to the center equilibrium line. Yeah, it's the same reason why the Earth is a globe. It's conservation of energy. This reality, the universe, is the ultimate conservationist. Nothing is wasted. Everything's done at a minimal cost, absolute minimal cost. So of course things would be spheres, globes, because that's conservation of energy.
Which sort of reminds me again of that Beauty of Graceful Machines, Graceful Loving Machines documentary, where people thought that nature was this system that was, if whatever you do to nature, it will bring itself back into balance. But the state of nature is not a state of balance; it's a dynamic state. Yeah. So that's reductionism again. Yeah.
It is a state of constantly trying to return to equilibrium. Yeah. If there was no new creative force, then eventually it would return completely to equilibrium. But because you've always got the transforming factor of that creative energy just changing shape but carrying on, that's like the fountain effect. Yeah. The water in the pool around the fountain will never settle and become an equilibrium because the fountain is constantly putting out energy.
What is trying to bring things back to equilibrium? Because it's not the third law of thermodynamics which makes the leaves on the forest floor rot. It's not the bugs that eat those leaves, because if they had the chance, they'd eat twice as many and their population would grow twice as fast, but it doesn't because it's another bug eating them. So I would disagree that nature is trying to bring itself back to equilibrium. Nothing that is alive in nature is trying equilibrium at all. Everything is trying to expand and grow all the time. Yeah,
I see what you mean.
See what I mean? Yeah. So an equilibrium is established, but it's an identityless equilibrium. It's only in the eye of the beholder, because every living thing is trying its hardest to fucking grow, if you see what I mean.
Maybe you could say equilibrium is just a concept that the natural world will never actually reach. It seems to head towards it, but as you say, it will never actually get to it because it's always in that flux generation kind of effect.
Until the lamb lies down with the lion.
Yeah. Until the second coming. It's okay enough. I'm running out of breath and I can't say a lot else. I'm going to leave it at that for this week. Hopefully I'll be getting my breath back a bit more for next week. Thanks again for joining in the chat room. And thanks to the guys for joining in just with the chat.
Cheers, Cookie. Thanks to all in the chat as well. Cheers. See you on Wednesday.
Yeah, we'll be back again on Wednesday on Reality Chat, on the Reality Chat channel.
Yep.
Don't believe all the bullshit. Don't let it fear you out. Fear is the mind killer. I mentioned it earlier. It's a Bruce Lee quote, isn't it? Courage is not the absence of fear. I can't remember the full quote, but that sort of gets the point across. Yeah, keep looking, keep talking, keep thinking, and keep getting the heart in there as well, not just the mind on its own. The heart is part of you as well.
Mm-hmm.
And don't forget, you are unique, you are special. No matter what labels they stick on you, you're special anyway, without all the fucking labels. Yeah, we'll see you
'Cause
again
you are
soon.
beautiful.
Nothing compares to you. So, enough of that silly. I'll end up turning Muslim if I start singing.
Leave the music to Steve, I think.
All right, thanks again, folks. I'm going to click the button. Cut. Cheese.